As we continue looking at giving feedback in listening groups as part of this series of growing as a spiritual accompanier, I want to look now at the role of the observer, what it is that the observer needs to pay attention to and therefore be able to give feedback about in the listening groups. To do that, I want to use this thing I've called the observing pyramid. Pyramids begin with a base. So let's look at the base of the whole accompaniment relationship. The basics are that the accompanier holds a space for the listener to contribute, to share, to explore, to continue their journey with God, being held in a space that is both discerning and enabling. What is involved from the point of view of the accompanier in holding this space? Well, the very beginning, there's some form of welcome. There is intended in this space a respect for the other. And also, as part of that, managing the boundaries. Is the door shut? Are we going to be undisturbed? What about time? These are different ways in which we address issues of boundaries. We also have, as part of holding the space, that establishment of what's the purpose of this, the intention. What are we focusing on? And that sense of how does the accompanier hold this space? Is it helpful? What about the way they do it that may be less helpful or even undermining of good space holding? That's the basics, the foundational level of for the observer to attend to. The second layer is the layer of listening, that attentiveness to the sharer. We listen to each other, not just to the words that are said, but to the tone of voice, to the body language, which can be saying things that are in tune with the words and tone of voice, and sometimes out of tune with the words and tone of voice. The listening pays attention to the whole of the person and the way they are communicating. But in a spiritual accompaniment, we're listening for more than just that. In a quick phrase, it's listening for the movements of the Spirit. What in what's being shared is of the Spirit of God in them? What is lifting their spirits in some way, showing that they are tuning in, drawing closer to something of God and God's grace in their life? What, on the other hand, may be drawing them away, distracting them, lowering their spirits because they are anxious and fearful about aspects of life? As we listen to the words, to the tone of voice, to the body language, we are listening even deeper to something of the movements of the Spirit of God in them. Someone once described this using another sense as kind of having a nose for God, listening and sniffing out, as it were, God at work in this person by the way they share and communicate. We've held the space, we're doing the listening, but we do more than just holding space and listening. We respond to what we hear. We respond because our responses may be helpful to this person in their spiritual journey, their relationship with God. So there is a huge question to be watching about the responses of people to others in spiritual accompaniment in terms of why were they responding to that and in that way. We observe, to listen, to notice what we are seeing in the intention of the listener. And of course, that response is made in words, in tone of voice, in body language. And often, as people are speaking, our body is speaking back. Our body language is on the go all the time. We are saying in our facial expression and our posture some sort of response to what we are hearing. And as an observer, noticing that level of response can be really quite revealing and helpful. And so we move on up the pyramid to the next level, because our responding, our presence, and all of that needs to be about enabling the person sharing to do their work in finding their way that God is at work with them. In other words, to enable their processing of their journey. And that processing can be enabled by our responding and listening, by our holding the space. And this involves a use of silence, because silence gives the space for all sorts of inner processing of the sharer. Observe, is the listener able to use silence and let, as some have said, silence do the heavy lifting? Are the questions and responses deepening ones, ones that take the person deeper into their process, deeper into their engaging with God, deeper into recognizing the truth that they are seeking? Or, as can be the case, are the questions a distraction, a focus on that which isn't going to help the process? That's for the observer to look and notice. But also, there's something about this processing enabling discernment. Does it help the person recognize the difference within themselves between that which is God-centered and God-focused and God-drawn, and that which may be centered and focused and drawn on something else, probably something to do with their own ego? How does the listener enable the processing work of the sharer with the use of silence and deepening questions and a discerning approach? And all of this pyramid, the holding the space, the listening, the responding, the enabling of processes, is intended to enable the ultimate purpose of the work of spiritual accompaniment, which is God's work, to enable the creator to deal with the creature. The point of spiritual accompaniment is using all the skills and gifts that we have to actually let God do the work. So as observers of someone accompanying, we can be attentive, noticing at these different levels how a particular accompanier is allowing the creator to deal with the creature, and where there are points of growth, where there is feedback needed to enable them to be less getting in the way of God being at work with the sharer. Take time to imagine yourself in the role of observer, and how you might pay attention to these levels of what is going on in front of you. What might help you focus on each of these? As human beings, it's impossible for us to keep attentive to all of them all the time. But in the course of observing someone, we can switch from one to the other and move up and down, as it were, the layers of the pyramid as we watch and seek to notice what it may be that is most important for us to offer in feedback.